How's it going, everybody? RazingHel here, and welcome back to another episode of Don't Starve Together MODlight. Today we're going to be taking a look at the additional item package by Zombie J. This is a little bit of a curious credit here because if we take a look at the actual store page for the additional item package, it has listed Smith 3 and Mag 6 as its creators. So take that for what you will. I don't know what's going on there, but anyway, the description is as follows. Provide additional items for game. Enjoy your new package. You can close part of package in options. Not the best translation, but it gets the job done. And I think those of us who speak English can understand what's going on here. So let's get started. Let's take a look at one of the most exciting aspects of this mod first, that being the ability to build train tracks. You can build additional tracks by going to your structures menu, and here it is under the title of Orbit, which I imagine is a less than accurate translation into English, but you just simply craft them and then you can plant them. So that's all fine and good, but then what about the minecart? The minecart can be crafted, obviously. That would be in the survival tab. 5 boards, and right there you got yourself a minecart, and then you can give it to the track. So now you have a minecart on a track, or on an orbit, as the mod would have you believe, and you can drive it simply by doing this. Now, driving it is not the best thing, but it's kind of cool. So by pressing up, we can start moving. We reached a junction point there, so we could not continue moving. But the thing about this is I am not pressing anything on the keyboard. This is technically not as fast as maybe it could be, but it is faster than the player would normally go holding a walking cane, for example. So here we are. We're just bebopping along the track. It's all automated. I don't have to touch anything. And this is basically our track over here to the dragonfly. Now, of course, there's a hound after us. And as you can see, the hound managed to attack you. So there's no immunity to your character simply for being in the mining cart. But the animals can't attack the track as well. Not easily, anyway. It can be blown up. For example, you can have certain enemies like Berger destroy it. But it's not easy for them to destroy the track, and the track is relatively cheap to build. So this could be like a very interesting way to be able to move from part of the map to another part while you're away from the keyboard, basically, because you don't actually need to be here to make these decisions. It's kind of automated. When you reach junctions like this, though, the train will come to a stop because it wants you to tell it which direction it should go in. But otherwise, if it reaches a junction like this that has an obvious direction, it will just continue on automatically. I have to explain this kind of stuff because it's not apparent since you really can't see what I'm doing on the keyboard, but right now I don't have my hands on the keyboard. So here we go, we're working our way over to the main part of the base, and now that I've pretty much finished demonstrating the minecart, I was just gonna stop driving it. The minecart is limited in the number of uses it has, which I think is a bit silly. It's a bit unfortunate. I think there should be an unlimited use item maybe, because let's be honest, the track is not amazing. It's very expensive to build. It doesn't make you go that much faster. If I could, I think I would make the track itself move you maybe double the speed of the player normally, given the kind of investment that you need to actually get it going. But that's just me. So let's take a look at some of the other things this mod offers. Right here this is called the Greedy Observer. And if we have a boss in the world, we can simply pay the Greedy Observer to reveal it on the map. So I'm going to spawn a Berger in, and then we're going to give the Greedy Observer some gold here. And now when you take a look at the map, we can see, oh, we actually have 2 bosses on this map. Apparently 2 Bergers. Because I spawned one in earlier to test it, and yeah, that's a Berger. The Greedy Observer, kind of interesting for spotting where bosses are on the map. I think it is fair, right? Because you can install a boss indicator. So this is like a better alternative, much more in line with what Don't Starve usually offers. You know, you build a structure, you have to pay it something, and it will operate for a little bit, right? That's not going to operate forever. A couple of other things are added here. We have sunflowers, we have grapes, and we have wheat, 3 different types of crops. Unfortunately, these seem to be added relatively recently, and there is not a whole lot you can do with them at the moment. We also have the incinerator here, which can turn things like ice into ash for some reason. Since we're so hungry, however, maybe it's time to get ourselves some nectar. So I've made up a lot of different nectars here: fruit nectar, honey nectar, frozen nectar. Let's eat one of them. You see, it doesn't do a whole lot, and I wish there was a better job of explaining it. These also do not stack for some reason. We also made some terrible nectar. And terrible nectar, the process of making it is relatively interesting because I'm just amazed at the thought process that would have to go into it. So here we have some premium ingredients. You know, we've got manure, we've got ashes, and we've got rot. Now these are very clearly items that we'd all want to make nectar with. So let's add a couple of manure, a couple of ash, and a couple of rot, and just cook it up, and I'm sure that will turn out something very nice. Now, of course, I'm being sarcastic because who in their right mind would think that would make good nectar? However, you can use things like honey, ice, and fruits. For some reason, you can't use vegetables. You can use manure. You can use manure in your nectar recipe, but you can't use vegetables. So I'm just kind of really fascinated by the thought process that went into that. I think that's amazing. That it's not possible to like say, I want to make some bad nectar using vegetables, but you can say, I want to throw manure inside my nectar maker and use that to make myself some very, very poor quality nectar. So we do have some other nectars, like I said before. Frozen nectar, if you add a lot of ice to the nectar maker, you're going to get your frozen nectar. It doesn't seem to do much to give you some sanity, I suppose. None of these seem to give you much hunger. And like terrible nectar just hurts you, so you probably don't want to make that. The recipes for the nectar makers are not very clear, so can't say much about that. Here's wheat, you know. Unfortunately, as I said before, you can't actually, there aren't many recipes that actually use wheat. We also have some new crockpot dishes that honestly I'm not going to get into because let's be fair here. I think the game has enough crockpot dishes as it is that go unused. It's one of those problems where the crockpot dishes are never seen. So it's out of sight, out of mind, and you never think about them. And if you don't have a wiki to actually figure out what the recipes are, like how many people are going to try experimenting? Probably not that many. So in my opinion, that's one of the weaker aspects of this mod, but it's still a lot of stuff here. We also have 3 new structures, the Moon Ash, this Watcher, and a Dao Jang, I imagine. I hope I pronounced that correctly. You can find them in your structures tab. The Moon Ash is rather interesting because it illuminates the close area around it. So like this is one of those structure ideas I think is kind of cool. Perhaps you could create a lot of these to line your base with, for example, if you were basing in the caves or something and you just wanted permanent light around your base. That's something the game currently does not have, and I think it should, because why can't we just have a source of permanent light if we're willing to invest a good amount of time and effort into making it? Okay, with the structures out of the way, let's take a look at some of the items that this mod adds that you can use yourself. So under the dress category at the very bottom, we have a horse head and some blue glasses. The horse head enables you to move faster, and it looks simply amazing. Can you imagine running around wearing this horse head, just making a complete ass of yourself? It doesn't get much better than that, I think. It's also a head item, which Don't Starve does not have by default, for increasing your speed. You know, Shipwrecked had one, but regular Don't Starve didn't. Then we also have the blue glasses here, which are not the best. They look pretty spiffy from facing forward, but if you turn to the side, you can see the glass is like just hovering in front of Wilson's eye, and there is not actually anything to keep it attached to his face. So not the most amazing model there, but supposedly this allows you to do more damage to shadow creatures. I haven't tested it personally, but I think that would be a welcome item. Like that's a unique item, a type of item I haven't seen before. It just doesn't tweak some existing stat. So it's kind of cool. In addition to that, we have a couple of new weapons. So the popcorn gun, it costs 2 corn, 1 gears, and 3 silk. Now, in past years, this would be a little bit of an expensive item to craft, all those gears that you'd require, but I think given how easy it is to renew gears in DST now, it's not as much of an issue. So you can use this for stuff like shooting birds, and honestly, that's about all it's good for. I'm not gonna mince it, because it takes a long time to kill anything, as you just saw there with killing a buzzard, right? We're down to 45% on a gun that uses a gear to craft it. So unless this thing has some special ability that I'm not aware of, once again, we have a weapon here that's basically only useful, really, for killing birds. The other weapon that was added, it was the fish sword. Now, I haven't played Shipwrecked a lot, to be honest. It seemed to me we already had something like this, but maybe I'm just mistaken. It's a sword. It's like the Hambat because it can spoil, and I guess the only redeeming quality is the fact that it requires 2 fish and nightmare fuel for some reason. And you would think that with nightmare fuel, it would be located in the magic tab, wouldn't you? There was also a behave. which I find a little bit interesting because it uses bee stingers, which is something that most worlds by default will have a ton of. It also requires 2 nightmare fuel and a tentacle spike, so it's basically an upgraded tentacle spike, which looks pretty donk. If you take a look at that thing. It's huge, it's massive. You know you're going to do some serious clubbing with this, and when you're fighting, it'll actually spawn in some little shadow bees. However, while the idea of summoning in little shadow bees to help you attack is most certainly compelling, they die very quickly, be it either to the attacks of whatever it is you're fighting, or actually just from being out in the sun too long. I suppose one cool thing about the bees here is that while attacking certain bosses with it, say for example Bearger or Tree Guard, you could let the bee get in the shadow bee get in the next hit, so that way those monsters would lose aggro onto you and now be aggroed onto the bee, which promptly dies, thereby absolving you from needing to fight anything. So that should hopefully give you a bit of an idea of what you can expect in this mod. I did not cover the foods that were added, the recipes specifically, but there are quite a few, I'd say around 15. So if you want to experiment with those yourself, feel free to. I'm just simply not somebody who's very interested in that kind of stuff, and it takes a long time to set up, to be honest. The mod itself does not have the best of English translations, but it's adequate, and I did not have any trouble actually understanding what most of the stuff was. In addition to that, I think the train tracks are really unique, and the mod continues to be updated to this very day. The last update was in February of 2018, so I thought it most certainly deserved a little bit more love because it had been actually introduced in October of 2017. So almost a 6-month period, receives new updates to the stuff in it, and I think that's really cool. And yeah, I was especially attracted to the idea of train tracks. And of course, you know, games like Terraria have them. And I think there's a lot of crossover between the audiences for both games. So I'm sure a lot of people would be excited to have some feature like train tracks actually in Don't Starve Together for them to use to automate some of the more boring missions to go gather certain resources. I just wish maybe they're a little bit faster. And by a little bit, I mean like twice as fast, because the investment of time and resources here is pretty massive, all things considered. So that's the additional item package by Smith 3 and Mag 6. As always, the links to any mods that I've covered in this video will be included in the description below. Thank you very much for watching as always, and I hope to see you next time.